All right, so we have another quadratic equation. This time one side's not equal to 0. So first step, subtract 2 on both sides and make something equal to 0. Then you can choose to factor it. If it looks like it's too hard to factor, you can choose to use the quadratic formula. It's up to you. This one does factor. So if it does factor, it's actually not too hard because the only option for the first terms has to be 5 sine and sine, because that's the only way to get 5 sine squared. Now for our last one, it's either 1 and 2 or 2 and 1. And it makes a difference because if I put the 2 and the 1 here, my outside is 10, my inside is 1. And 10 and 1 never make 3. But if I put my 2 here and my 1 here, now my outside is 5 and my inside is 2. And that does make 3, especially if my 5 is positive and my 2 is negative. So what we end up getting, here we get sine x equals negative 1, and here we get sine x equals positive 2/5. The negative 1 is on our pi plate. That one we can do. Was this question between negative 2 pi and 2 pi, right? So we'll still first solve between 0 and 2 pi. There's only one place where the y-coordinate is negative 1, and that's at 3 pi over 2. But sine x equals 2/5 isn't on our pi plate. Because it's positive, if you wanted to draw a picture of it, you know that it's in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2. Here's our reference angle, opposite over hypotenuse. If you wanted to find that reference angle, it'll be sine inverse of 2/5. Now, since we're dealing in radians, we make sure our calculator's in radians. And sine inverse of 2/5 gives us 0.4115. So there's our reference angle. Did the question give us a decimal place to round to? No? Okay. So we'll do it at 2 decimal places. So now our answers for x here, well, in quadrant 1, it's going to be the same, 0.41. In quadrant 2, we would do pi minus that reference angle. And we get 2.73. Now, that's between 0 and 2 pi. But our question said from negative 2 pi to 2 pi. So now we have to think, and I'll do our negative answers in red. If 3 pi over 2 is a positive way around, how would we get there in the negative direction? Negative pi over 2. And these little diagrams here, those are diagrams with our reference angle of 0.41. What I would do in this case is I would think, what's happening in each of these cases? In the bottom one there, can you see that you're going like you're going to quadrant 3 if you were going in the positive direction, but we're going in the negative direction? So what I'm going to do is in my calculator, I'm going to take pi, and I'm going to add my reference angle, and I'm going to get a positive number. But whatever number that is, when I write it as my answer, it's going to be negative, so it'll be negative 3.55. Same thing for the one in quadrant 1. I'll think about going all the way around, negative 2 pi. And I'll just go 2 pi minus my reference angle, 5.87, and I'll put a negative in front of that. So there we have all of our answers from negative 2 pi to 2 pi. This question also said, write the general solution. So again, when writing the general solution, write out all of your answers from 0 to 2 pi. So those were the ones we did in blue at the beginning. That's 3 pi over 2, 0.41, and 2.73. Add 2k pi to each one of those. Where k is an integer.